This is Volkswagen ID.3. I waited a long time for this car and I'll tell you later. The Volkswagen ID.3 is a compact EV, the successor to the e-Golf, and the first of VW's model range based on the MEB platform dedicated to electric cars. 3 in the name is the segment designation, with 1 reserved for the A segment and 2 for the B or supermini segment. I also heard a marketing spin that the ID.3 is VW's third breakthrough model after the Beetle and the Golf because it starts the era of mass e-mobility. You can already order the ID.4 crossover, which is slightly smaller than the Skoda Enyaq, and once again will have a strange rivalry between similar models from different brands belonging to the same group. Why not new e-Golf, e-Tiguan, e-Polo? Because in order to make the e-Golf happen, the engineers had to stuff all the electric bits and bobs into a car designed for an internal combustion engine. Sure, you can dump the engine and the fuel tank and swap them for electric motor and some batteries, but that's not an optimum solution. It's better to design a new layout on a new platform and build around that. And here we have the ID.3. It would be difficult to add more batteries to the e-Golf. Denser batteries, yes, but not bigger. In case of the MEB, there is space between the front and rear wheels to add or remove some batteries depending on the range the client needs, and you can add all-wheel drive as well. Enough about the platform, now let's talk ID.3, which is 426 cm long, just 2 cm shorter than the Mark 8 Golf. The ID.3 is 2 cm wider than the Golf and 8 cm higher. The wheelbase is a whopping 15 cm longer than in the Golf. At 2,765 mm, it's as long as in the Hyundai Santa Fe. The ID.3 looks modern, just like a concept model that ran away from the show floor. The driver is greeted from a distance with a smiling... Well, cars don't have faces, and this one doesn't really have a grille either. Anyway, the car kind of smiles at you like those Japanese robot dogs. It took me several attempts to get the ID.3 to do the welcome smile. The VW press office was unable to tell me what conditions must be met in order for it to work. A quick look under the bonnet where there's some electric stuff, but not the motor. The electric motor is under the boot floor. 204 horsepower in this car. Unfortunately, we don't have a frunk to store charging cables like in the BMW i3 or the Jaguar I-Pace. But moving the electric motor to the back made it possible to turn the wheels more, and the ID.3 has a tighter turning radius than the Golf, 5.1 meters versus almost 5.5 meters. This is the kind of result you get in small city cars like the Fiat Panda or the Fiat 500. And in the supermini segment, only the Ford Fiesta can make such a tight turn. And the Dacia Duster, of all the cars. I like the ID.3's futuristic design, but as far as living with it is concerned, I'm not a fan of these diamond indents on the bumper as they collect dirt, and it's hard to clean, obviously. Also, this plastic element on the boot is a bug trap. The sideline is clean and uncomplicated. The rear is dominated by a black tailgate, half of which is made of piano black plastic, which is already scratched. It's not visible from a distance, but when you look up close, I'd get this protected before you leave the showroom. There are ways to do it. The tailgate release lever is under the VW logo, also where the backup camera is located. Now, in order to keep the black element one piece and avoid the compliance tail lamps inside, the designers decided to make these cutouts around the tail lamps. The boot has 385 liters volume and it's just a smidge larger than in the Golf. The double floor is missing, although I have seen it on the pre-production model before the 2019 Frankfurt Motor Show. There are a couple of shopping bag hooks as well as anchor points to secure luggage. Just next to the bumper is a narrow but deep cubby where you can store your charging cable, hopefully not when the boot is fully loaded and you need it. When new generations of existing models come to market, car makers often boast about an extra couple of centimeters of legroom in the back thanks to a couple of centimeters extra longer wheelbase. Now that's something you could miss because of the way the front seat is set, but here you'll notice the extra 15 centimeters wheelbase versus the Golf. The legroom is really very generous. Because of how the batteries and the electric motor are placed, the rear seats are mounted higher than in a regular hatchback. This translates into better visibility to the front and to the sides, but taller passengers enjoying more legroom will not have more headroom. There are good enough door pockets, 2 USB-C ports. You can store your phone in pockets on top of the front seats. There is no AC air vent, but there is an armrest with some cup holders and a ski hatch as well. Isofix mounting points are on the side seats, as well as one on the front passenger seat. Having so much space in the back means you could have a rear-facing child seat in the front, as well as another one in the back, and have 2 adults sitting here and here supervising both kids. Going back to the interior design, it is minimalist and modern. I like the off-white upholstery available on some trims, although I'm sure I'd change my mind after a couple of months. Storage, large door pockets, small glove box, decent sized storage between the seats. The seats get captain armrests, adjusted with a push of a button so you can place them exactly where you need them. In the center storage, there is a couple of USB-C ports, as well as a movable or removable divider. There are also 2 large cup holders and a net for some smaller items. There is a small display in front of the driver with just the speed, adaptive cruise control readout, as well as sat-nav directions. Sat-nav directions are also repeated on the IQ light panel under the windscreen. This is also where things like collision warning light appears. You can turn it off if you don't like it. And then there is the central display with sat-nav and car settings. There is no Android Auto on the first edition model. I expect it will come with a software update, and boy will there be updates. Software problems were widely discussed by the German media. Also, new owners report of some random errors like adaptive cruise control shutting off. I had an airbag error appear and disappear. Clients choosing the first edition with augmented reality HUD have to wait until Q1 2021 before this function will be delivered in a software update. It all kind of works, but kind of works is not something you want to hear when you're considering the purchase of a breakthrough model that starts the era of mass electromobility. Everything is touch operated, including the hazard light switch, which you can trip by accident when operating the screen above it. I get the impression as if the designers didn't care much for physical interaction with the car's interface. For example, instead of turning on the heated steering wheel, you can just say to the car, "My hands are cold," or instead of looking for the airflow settings, you can say, "My feet are cold," and sometimes the system will understand. Same thing with the sat-nav voice input, where you need to know the entire address and say it in the correct order. There is no context search, despite the car reminding you all the time it is online when you start it. Speaking of starting the car, there is an on-off button down here, but the car is ready to go as soon as you open it. Press the brake, put the car in reverse or in drive, because there is no gear as such, and yeah, you're ready to go. The ID.3 has great soundproofing and it is very comfortable. In the city, I'm isolated from other noises. It's when I reach about 90 kilometers per hour when I start hearing wind noise around the A-pillars. This is not a car for fast driving. More about that in a moment. The suspension is compliant enough to smooth out most bumps. Unless you hit a really big pothole, you won't feel the 1600 kilograms this car weighs. Almost 500 kilograms are the batteries. Thanks to having them in the floor, the ID.3 has low center of gravity, which most of the time makes this car good around the corners. Most of the time, because the ID.3 in its current form is not made for people who like to drive fast. In tighter bands, you'll trigger the ESP, which you cannot turn off. Well, sure you can, but that would require some sort of a hack through one of these OB2 bricks. Under normal circumstances, there is no drifting. Shame, because the ID.3 is rear-wheel drive.
Volkswagen promises the Pro Performance model with the 58 kWh batteries will accelerate from 0 to 100 km per hour in 7.3 seconds. I checked and this is what I achieved in comfort and sport mode. 80 to 120 km per hour takes just above 5 seconds. Unfortunately, driving like this or even above 90 km per hour quickly kills your range.
The ID.3 can be ordered with 45, 58 or 77 kWh batteries. The first edition comes with the middle battery capacity. You can already order the 77 kWh version, while the base battery model will be available in 2021.
With 58 kWh batteries, the WLTP range is 420 km. Without going into the net and total capacity, you'd have to achieve 14 kWh per 100 km. During the first couple of days with the ID.3, I averaged between 17 and 19 kWh per 100 km. Only when I got used to the car, I got it down to about 16, but in the city in comfort mode with recuperation on. I didn't use eco mode as in the ID.3 it kills all the fun.
Get out on the motorway and you're up to 20 kWh per 100 km, which means you're not going to get even 300 km range. Because of my test calendar, I wasn't able to do a real live range test this time, but my results seem to be in line with what the first edition users are getting.
I'll add, I tested this car in mid-October with daytime temperature below 10 degrees Celsius and with intermittent rain, so the heater, the wipers, the lights were on. By the way, the ID.3 is so intelligent, I didn't even have to use the defogger, the windows never fogged up. An observation regarding visibility, and this is specific to my height and resulting driving position. The A-pillar perfectly obstructs visibility at junctions, crossings, and in tighter bends. My girlfriend, who is much shorter than me, says she sees perfectly through the corner window. Check visibility during a test drive. Adaptive cruise control works well. It reads the speed limits and adapts the speed seamlessly. The lane assist, though, works too late in my opinion.
Recuperation. Beside the standard D mode, there is also a B mode for region braking. Yes, the car will slow down and the brake lights will come on, but it's not the kind of strong braking you get in the BMW i3, the Mini E or the Nissan Leaf. No one-pedal driving in the ID.3. Also, you have to remember to turn the recuperation on. Yes, it stays on when you're back from reverse, but when you restart the car, it's back in D. In the BMW or the Nissan, there is a separate recuperation button and the driver decides when it's on or off. I get the impression VW couldn't make up their mind whether to make a modern or an inoffensive car. On one hand, everything is touch operated, and on the other hand, you don't even get proper recuperation. Come on.
On the plus side, there is 100 kW rapid charging. Most of the EVs I reviewed so far had 50 kW charging, with notable exceptions being the Porsche Taycan, up to 150 kW, the Mercedes-Benz EQC, up to 110 kW, and the Kia e-Soul, up to 77 kW. With fast enough charger, you can recharge your ID.3 in just over half an hour. That's a quick trip to the grocery store. Of course, frequent rapid charging is not good for the battery life. If possible, it's better to use a Type 2 or even a home plug. Yes, it will take much longer. It all depends on whether you can have a wall box or an ordinary socket installed in your garage. But even if you can't charge it at home, the ID.3 is a city car and 300-400 km range means you should be fine making a charging detour once a week. The Volkswagen ID.3 prices start at €35,600 for the non-first edition 58 kWh battery model. The 77 kWh model starts at €41,000. The first edition units started at €39,000 with 58 kWh battery. Pricing for the 45 kWh battery models will start around €30,000. Those will come with 50 kW charging.
I started this review by saying I waited a long time for the ID.3 and and I wanted to buy one. I had a reservation for the first edition model, and I wanted to take it around Europe to prove to myself and to you that EVs make sense, or that they're a load of bull. I had reserved one at the end of May 2019, and I waited. Every couple of months I got an email about innovative user interface, or innovative lights, or hey, the production just started, the configurator is about to launch. And they had a screw up and it launched a week later. I think it was after the first Corona lockdown when I could finally configure a car, and yeah, that was a year after I reserved it. Meanwhile, I was reading about software issues, and with the pandemic in the back of my head, I knew that my plans for a tour of Europe were looking sketchy at best. And then I realized a fully loaded ID.3 first edition would cost 50 grand, and I would get the augmented reality HUD with a software update sometime in Q1 2021, and yeah, I would get the car in September 2020, just in time for a second wave of the pandemic, so traveling around the continent would definitely be a bad idea. And this is why, boys and girls, I did not get the ID.3. Any regrets? I'd love to drive it around Europe. Well, I'd love to drive around Europe, but not in this car. If I needed a city roundabout, the ID.3 would be great, but it's hardly a revolution like the Beetle or the Golf. I understand why they need a new platform to develop EVs, but for the city, an e-Golf would be more than enough. And how do you like the VW ID.3? Thinking of getting one, or maybe you're one of the first edition model owners? How is it to live with so far? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.